You return to the place that waits between thought and sleep. No clocks. No hurry. Only a corridor that lengthens when you resist and shortens when you allow. On your left and on your right, doors rest like resting animals, unbothered, aware, kind. Bring nothing you must carry. If any weight arrived with you, set it beside the wall. It will wait, or it will wander off, or it will turn into air. You are not here to prove, to fix, to finish. You are here to be received. Breathe with the room, in, soft, out, slower. Let the jaw loosen. Let the shoulders lower. Let the spine remember length without effort, as if the night itself were gently straightening you from within. Behind you, noise loosens its grip and falls like rain deciding to land somewhere else. Ahead, patience gathers the way moss gathers to stone. The corridor keeps a steady temperature of welcome. Your name is not required here. Presence is enough. You walk, not with haste, but with quiet purpose. The floor gives a tender answer to each step. A cable in the distance hums low and kind, as if a sleeping creature were content to be your companion. Dust turns in a slice of hidden light and then forgets to be important. Soon you notice it, a stillness in the shape of a door. It does not shine. It does not call. It allows. You do not rush. Rushing would be the language of elsewhere. Here, the language is permission. If sleep finds you before the door opens, that is also arrival. The story knows the way. It will keep walking and carry you with it. When you wake, you will be farther along the same gentle path, as if kindness continued on your behalf. Pause at arm's length. Feel the air on your palm before your palm meets anything. A warmth waits there, not heat from light, but the warmth of a presence that understands. The seam of the frame seems to breathe without moving. The handle holds the memory of other careful hands, and warms by degrees instead of asking you to decide. Lay down the heavy ideas. Not because they are wrong, because they are tired. Let them rest like coats, sliding toward the wall until their hooks are no longer needed. Notice how the mind sits down at the back of the room all on its own, content to listen for once. One breath more, in, gentle, out, gentler. A door does not require effort here. It recognizes readiness. When you are ready, the opening will not be an action. It will be an agreement. Tonight, the corridor has chosen the breathing door. Whether it opens now or later is not the test. Trust is the only key, and you are already holding it. When you are ready, we begin. You begin to walk the pace that belongs to this place. Half a step slower than habit. Half a breath longer than usual. The corridor understands. It adjusts around you the way a lake accepts a stone, without hurry, without fuss. On the left wall a faint warmth lingers, as if it remembered other palms. On the right, paint has the soft sheen of night air after rain. Between them, you are carried by intention rather than effort. A low wire hum stays just ahead, neither calling nor warning. A companion sound that keeps you from measuring distance and numbers. You measure in kindness instead. 1 kindness, 2 kindness, 3, and the mind loosens. Dust turns in a thin wedge of light and forgets to reach the floor. A seam in the plaster curves like a smile that never needs to prove itself. Your steps land as lightly as reading a line you already love. The corridor changes very little, which is how you notice everything. Where the floorboards widen, the air grows softer. Where the ceiling lowers, sound becomes velvet. You let these shifts guide you the way tides guide sleep. Pull, release, pull. You touch the wall with the back of your fingers. It greets you with a coolness that means welcome, not refusal. Somewhere a hinge murmurs. Somewhere a tiny draft explores the baseboards. Nothing asks you to decide faster than calm can decide. Ahead, doors keep rhythm with your breath. Some breathe in when you breathe out, some wait for you to finish. You do not choose among them yet. Choice is another room. This is the hallway of permission. Let the jaw hang heavy for a moment and then soften. Let the shoulders drip downward like warm wax. Let the spine lengthen as if a silk thread lifted it from the center. You are learning the grammar of moving gently. Notice the silence between the hums. Notice the weight of your feet halved by attention. Notice how thought takes a back row seat and enjoys not being in charge. A bend approaches, barely a bend, more like a suggestion. You follow it the way you follow the end of a sentence that doesn't need a period. Past the bend, the temperature changes by a kindness or two. You breathe to meet it, and it breathes to meet you. If a memory arrives, let it walk beside you until it grows curious about the walls. Then let it wander to read the paint, the tiny scratches, the patient dust. Memories like to help. They forget their heaviness when they are allowed to look. This place is not a test. It is a listening. It listens to your pace, and you listen back. A door on the left carries a thin seam of brightness. Not shining, simply awake. Another door on the right holds the shadow of a handle that warms by degrees. You pass both without argument. You are not late for anything here. At your next step, the floor answers with a tone lower than thought. At your next breath, the chest opens a window you did not know existed. At your next blink, the corridor seems nearer though it has not moved at all. You are received. That is the whole event. Keep walking, precisely as gently as this. Until the door that is already choosing you decides to stand still. There are many doors, but only one begins to meet your rhythm. You don't look for it the way you'd search a shelf. You let your attention widen until a single point stays bright when everything else dims. The hallway changes nothing, and that is how the difference shows itself. A cooler strip of air crosses your wrist. It is narrow as a ribbon, steady as a tide that has chosen a direction. You follow the ribbon the way a leaf follows the slowest current. On the left, a door has a color that refuses to announce itself, somewhere between ash and rain. Its surface is calm, but the paint carries a memory of heat the room has not kept. The handle is dull brass, polite, not insistent. You aren't sure why you're breathing and the grain of that paint begin to agree, but they do. You pause 3 steps back. Not hesitation, alignment. Listen, not for a voice, for the absence of effort. The less you try, the nearer it feels. Something in the hinges holds a patience that matches the bones in your hand. Your pulse slows until it can be counted by lamplight. Smell gathers like a sentence almost finished, dry wood, a thread of resin, a suggestion of something warm that has nothing to do with temperature. The corridor stays the corridor, and yet a circle of nearness forms around this one place, as if the room were drawing a small map for you alone. Other doors do ordinary door things. One breathes dust. One keeps a thin brightness at the seam. One leans a fraction, as if tired of being perfect. None of them feel wrong, they simply aren't yours tonight. You let your gaze soften until the handle blurs. The blur removes wanting from the picture. In the soft, a detail appears, the faintest darkening where hands have rested before, not a stain, a story. You add your own chapter by standing still. The floor carries a gentle arc here, barely a rise, like the back of a quiet animal. When you step onto that arc, your weight is redistributed in a way your feet appreciate. It is not comfort you notice, exactly, more like correctness. A whisper of static brushes your sleeve, the kind the air makes when it decides to rearrange itself. Your shoulder unclenches by a small, honest degree. In that exact instant, the door seems closer by the width of a breath. You do not announce your choice. Choices made in this corridor prefer silence. You exhale and give the room a chance to disagree. It does not. A kindness reaches you without moving. 2 more steps. The grain of the wood becomes legible, tiny rivers running upward, not down, as if the door learned to breathe against gravity. The handle holds still and somehow feels attentive. The seam does not shine, but it keeps a line of clarity the eye can trust. There, the sensation you were waiting for, although you didn't know you were waiting. A small easing at the back of the mouth. A softening behind the eyes. The body recognizes a safe task. You lift your hand only to the height where the air changes. That is enough. Touch is not required to confirm what you already know. The door is here. The door is awake. The door is not asking, it is ready. You imagine the room beyond for one heartbeat, and the imagining is quiet, a breath of space, a place to set down anything that still insists on being carried, a sound like distance resting. The picture fades, leaving assurance in its wake. No knocking. No turning. Only standing within the small circle where the corridor chooses you back. Wait one more breath, and then let the next part of the story begin when it wishes. Do not rush the last inch. The inch before entry is its own room, small, invisible, generous. Here the body learns how to arrive without taking anything. Your shoes decide to be quiet. The floor holds a temperature that says welcome without using the word. A draft explores your sleeves and loses interest, even the air has nothing to prove. You let the weight in your feet spread wider, as if each sole were a lake accepting the sky. Knees soften. The back of the neck loosens and adds an inch to the night. Your attention is no longer forward, it is around you, like a lantern with a patient flame. Count nothing, yet notice everything. The scene where paint meets wood. A faint oval of polish from careful hands. The way the handle's shadow admits it is only shadow and relaxes. You raise your palm, not to press, simply to learn the air. There is warmth there, not from light, not from friction, but from recognition. A presence answers presence. If a thought arrives, let it stand beside you the way a friend stands at a window. Looking out, not talking. If a memory insists on telling its story, nod once, the nod is enough. Stories shorten when they are believed without question. Breathe into the bottom, then let the exhale wander home. You hear the room the way you hear distance at night, not as sound but as space keeping its promise. Something in the hinges holds a patience that matches the bones of your hand. The threshold introduces itself without words. I am not a line to be crossed. I am a climate to acclimate to. You stand in that climate and let your pulse agree. Each beat rounds its corners, each blink lands slower, lighter. A thin grain of dust rises and falls in front of you. Not floating, practicing. It learns how to descend without hurry and teaches you the same. You do not picture the room beyond anymore. Imagination is loud, even when it tries to whisper. Tonight, the door will open because you already belong to the opening. Rest the tongue on the roof of the mouth, let the jaw descend a breath's thickness. Let the chest widen toward the sides instead of forward. Let the belly admit it knows how to be soft. The body writes a short letter to the mind. I can carry us from here. You place the tips of your fingers on the wood. Not a push, a conversation. The wood replies with a warmth that is not heat, a yes that is not a word. It knows how often hands arrive asking to force what can only be allowed. You are not that kind of visitor. Another breath. The corridor feels farther and closer at once. The way the sea does when you stand ankle deep. It withdraws, it returns, and somehow you are steadier than before. Practice is for the last inch, use any or none. Let your eyes half close until the handle becomes a moon with its own tide. Imagine the spine like a mast with the sail lowered, the wind is permission. Count the hums you can't hear. Or simply be here and let the inch be the one that travels. If sleep leans toward you now, allow it. Falling asleep before the door opens is not failure. It is the door opening to your breathing instead of your feet. You are ready when nothing inside you wants to be first. Ready when curiosity is kind. Ready when effort looks old. Hover a heartbeat longer. Let the next inhale arrive like a guest who knows your house. On the exhale, put down the invisible luggage, the need to be wise, to be good, to be new. There is nothing to carry into a room that will carry you. The door has been ready since before you noticed it. It waited for your waiting to finish ripening. Now both of you are ripe, door and guest, threshold and breath. When the opening happens, it will feel like a page turning itself. No creak, no show, only agreement. Keep the hand gentle. Keep the mind unoccupied. Notice how quiet has learned your name. If there is a word to take with you, let it be small, softly. If there is a promise, let it be shorter, stay. If there is a prayer, let it be silent enough to hear its answer. Stand in the last inch until the inch becomes the first step. Then let the step happen on its own. You do not turn the handle first, you turn your attention. It faces forward the way a shoreline faces the tide, available, unconcerned with arrival. Place your palm an inch from the metal. Feel the slight lift in the air, as if the room were nodding. Let the breath widen, not deeper, just wider, so there is enough space for an opening to happen without being pushed. The door does not mistake you for someone in a hurry. It recognizes the posture of yes. At that recognition, the hinge remembers its calling. Not a squeak. Not a show. A quiet release, like a knot deciding to untie itself because it has outlived its use. You do not hear movement, you sense agreement. The scene lengthens by the width of a moth wing, by the time of a soft blink. A cooler thread of air slips through and rests against your wrist as if to say, come as you are. Let the shoulder blades slide down the back. Let the mouth forget about shaping words. Every mechanism in you that expects effort is invited to sit down. You choose not to step yet. Instead, you let the room beyond cross the threshold first. It arrives without fanfare, presence pouring through a narrow permission, widening as it meets you. It smells of dry wood and something warm that has nothing to do with heat. It sounds like distance resting. The handle warms by degrees under 2 fingers. Not because you demand it, but because metal likes to remember kindness. You incline your weight 3 grains forward, no more than a nod, and the slab floats inward as if the corridor exhaled. You keep your gaze soft. Edges are gentler when they're not forced to be exact. Framed by the widening line, the interior becomes a slow revelation, a breadth of space, a patient hush, a sense that nothing here takes and nothing asks. Step 1. Allow your heel to think of moving. Step 2. Let the air make room for your foot before your foot arrives. Step 3. Enter by agreeing that you are already welcome. The temperature changes half a kindness. The light becomes unambitious, the kind of light that favors forgiveness over detail. Your name loosens from its task. Presence takes over. Behind you, the door continues to open of its own accord until it is exactly open enough. No angle needs to be measured. This place is expert at sufficiency. Pause just inside. Listen to how silence rearranges itself to include you. A cable hum far away lowers to match your breath. Somewhere, dust completes a circle and calls it done. If the thought arises to check what's behind you, let the thought look for you. It will not find you where you used to be. You are a different address now, one the world can still reach, but only with gentleness. With your next inhalation, the floor feels less like support and more like agreement. With your next exhalation, the day unhooks itself from your shoulders without complaint. A small, almost private warmth gathers behind the sternum and spreads like tea through linen. The door's edge meets the slow halt that means enough. You do not close it, you do not need to. Readiness doesn't require barricades. Notice how the opening was never a contest of strength. It was timing, attention, permission. A choreography where every part bowed to ease. Now, set a hand lightly against the inner face, not to test, but to thank. Thank the wood for learning patience, the hinge for remembering quiet, the air for making way. You are inside. That is the sentence. Let it end without a period so the hush may keep speaking. You step in fully, and the room answers by becoming larger than your need. Silence arranges itself like soft furniture, no corners to catch on, no angles to defend. The light is unambitious, a kind of kindness that chooses outline over detail. You feel yourself included without being displayed, accompanied without being asked to perform. Let the breath arrive as it chooses. Inhale not to fill, but to greet. Exhale not to empty, but to offer. Between the two, a small plateau appears where nothing must improve and nothing has to end. Floor, wall, air, 3 simple agreements. The floor carries weight the way a shoreline carries foam, holds, receives, lets go. The wall is not a barrier, only a boundary that allows shape. The air is patient company, touching and retreating, until touching is simply being here. A faint pulse in your wrists keeps time you do not have to count. Your tongue rests against the palate like a boat moored with a loose rope. The jaw hangs heavy and then forgets what heavy means. Listen for the room's small movements. A slow cooling along the ceiling. A modest draft rehearsing the baseboards. Dust choosing to land as if the story needed a quiet period here. You have entered the wide quiet, the place in the night where effort has nothing left to prove. Here, thought is allowed to be a cloud rather than a navigation system. Here, memory is allowed to be a picture book, not a courtroom. Here, the future takes off its shoes. If something inside wants to speak, it will soften into breath and step aside. If something inside wants to stay, it will find a chair that exists when needed and vanishes when not. Even wanting learns to whisper. The temperature sits a half-degree below intention. Your hands warm themselves by being hands. Your shoulders lower until they meet the level of trust. Try the smallest experiment. Imagine that gravity is a kindness rather than an order. Instead of holding you down, it holds you with, like a palm that would never squeeze. Notice how the spine answers, one vertebra at a time, by becoming available rather than tall. Your attention widens to the room's edges, not to monitor, but to include. At the far side, nothing remarkable, only a darker portion of ordinary. Near your feet, a brightening that is not from a lamp but from agreement. Agreement glows. It does not glare. You could name objects if you wished, perhaps a low table, perhaps a faint rug, a suggestion of shelves. But the night dislikes inventories, it prefers invitations. So you let shapes remain suggestions, and the suggestions remain friendly. Breathing now feels less like air and more like tide. When you inhale, a long shoreline appears, the kind that is timed to be generous. When you exhale, what you carried as mine dissolves just enough to be ours. Behind you, the door stands ajar in a posture of whenever. It is not guarding the corridor, and it is not guarding you. It simply remembers how to wait without becoming a question. The room places a hand you cannot see against the middle of your back, not pressure, orientation. Here is forward, it says. Here is rest. Both are the same direction tonight. You may sit without finding a chair. You may lie back without discovering a bed. Comfort is not a piece of furniture in this place. Comfort is the conversation between body and air. A small sound, like cloth folding, comes from nowhere in particular. Another sound, like a kettle deciding not to boil, abandons the effort halfway. You realize how much of your life has been steam. You realize how good it is to be water. If a worry returns, let it return. Offer it the most comfortable corner of the room. Watch as it cannot keep its shape in this pressureless weather. Worries are costumes. The wide quiet does not host costume parties. You try on the sentence, I am allowed to be unfinished. It fits better than you expected. You try another, I am safe enough to rest. It becomes true as soon as it is considered. The body appreciates truth with immediate obedience. The brow unknits. The throat widens. The breath travels farther south, visiting rooms it often ignores. On the next inhale, imagine the ribs opening like shutters in evening wind. On the next exhale, imagine the floor rising a gentle millimeter to meet you. Neither image needs to be accurate to be helpful. The nervous system speaks metaphor. Give it poetry and it will give you sleep. You do not drift, you are carried. You do not disappear, you are held so fully that selfhood can rest from doing selfhood. The room grows as you soften, and you soften because the room grows. Let the eyes close if they wish. Let them stay half-lidded if they prefer. Let your attention settle, feather by feather, until it becomes a bird that no longer needs to fly to prove it is a bird. You have entered the wide quiet. There is nothing to pass, nothing to fail, nothing to fix. Only this gentle continuity, this unwavering consent of space and breath. Remain here until the next part of the story comes to collect you. Not as a taskmaster, but as a friend who knows your pace. Begin with the breath, not as a task but as a place to be. Let the inhale arrive like a tide touching shore, steady, unhurried. Let the exhale leave like water finding its level, complete, uncomplicated. Between them, allow a brief plateau where you do nothing at all. That small stillness is the body remembering how to trust. Invite the breath lower. Feel the belly soften toward the spine, then float outward by a quiet centimeter. Feel the sides of the ribs widen like courteous doors that open for a friend and close with no sound. Unclasp the brow, not by pushing it smooth, but by losing interest in effort there. Let the space behind the eyes be airy. Let the tongue rest wide and heavy, as if it had put down its work for the night. Notice the throat. Imagine it as a short hallway you know well, no drafts, no traffic. When you inhale, that hallway brightens. When you exhale, it dims to a kind glow. Nothing catches. Drop your attention to the chest. Under the sternum, there is a small place that keeps company with warmth. Breathe into that place as if polishing a window from the inside. The polish is patience, nothing more. Shoulders next. They have done enough. Let them slide a fraction down and a fraction out, creating space where breath can travel without asking permission. If a shrug wants to finish itself and fade, let it. Arms. Feel the upper arms release their idea of holding. Elbows grow a little heavier, as though gravity had better manners here. Hands loosen, the backs warming, the palms cool, the fingers long and useless in the best way. Spine. Think of it not as a column but as a chain of small rooms, each with a window cracked open. On your inhale, the windows open a touch wider. On your exhale, the curtains lift and settle. No room argues. Belly and hips. Let the lower abdomen become soft, then softer. Let the hips imagine they are bowls that do not need to hold anything. If they tilt toward ease. The pelvis rests where the room would put it. Legs. Thighs grow broad and quiet. Knees unhook their last little brace. Calves keep only the tone required to feel present. Ankles do nothing heroic. Feet. Spread attention to the heels, the arches, the balls, the toes. Let each part believe that support is everywhere, not only underneath. A warm outline forms around both feet, as if the floor had remembered your shape and returned it. Now pair breath with release. Inhale, widen the back of the ribs. Exhale, let the front of the ribs settle without collapse. Inhale, picture the sacrum floating like a small boat on a lake. Exhale, let that boat drift toward the middle and rest. Inhale, the collarbones glide a quiet millimeter apart. Exhale, the sternum nods yes. Count not with numbers but with seasoned words, arrival, dwelling, departing, resting. Let each cycle be a weather change too gentle to name. If a muscle wants to speak up, let it use a softer voice. If a joint wants to creak, let it creak like an old chair you love. This room is patience for honest sounds. Invite the breath into the back body. As you inhale, imagine the skin between the shoulder blades cool and spacious. As you exhale, imagine that same space warmer by one kindness. Breath is a messenger, give it friendly errands. You may feel a slow wave travel from the base of the skull to the tailbone and back. Don't chase it. Let it make its rounds and forget to report. Waves without witnesses become rest. Allow the face to belong to sleep before sleep arrives. Eyelids are heavy velvet. Cheeks are unguarded. Jaw hangs, then remembers it can close without closing down. If a thought visits, about tomorrow, about yesterday, let it try the furniture and find everything too soft for urgency. Thoughts often nap when no one offers them a task. Return to breath once more. Lengthen the exhale by a small syllable. Let the next inhale be shy, the next exhale generous. Stay curious about small improvements that ask for no effort. When body and breath agree, something quieter than comfort appears. It doesn't announce itself. It simply rearranges the inside so that rest feels obvious. Hold here in this loosened state. Not to guard it, but to be guarded by it. Until the room itself suggests the next movement. Memories arrive the way dusk arrives, edge by edge, without insisting on a climax. They don't line up for judgment. They sit down on the floor like travelers who have learned to be quiet. Let them. They are not here to replay, they are here to be relieved of their weight. One memory is the color of late afternoon, amber at the edges, ordinary in the middle. It once felt heavy because you carried it like a task. Placed in this room, it learns a new job, to turn from stone into fabric. You can fold it now. You can put it on the back of a chair. It keeps its shape just enough to be recognized, and no more. Another memory arrives in pieces, a hallway, a voice, a word you never said aloud. You used to wonder what might have happened if. Here, the ellipsis is permission, not punishment. The unfinished remains unfinished and becomes restful the way a tide is restful precisely because it does not stay. Do not retell. Let remembering be a kind of weather. You are the landscape, not the forecast. Notice how the breath changes the moment you stop asking memories to perform. Inhale, and they lift a centimeter, as if carried by a warmer current. Exhale, and they settle where the floor is most patient. A system reveals itself. Nothing is trapped, nothing is forced to disappear. Things are simply allowed to become lighter than they were. There is a particular memory that always walked ahead of you, ringing a little bell so you wouldn't forget its importance. In the wide quiet, the bell sounds like a spoon set down on cloth. You thank it for its service and watch as it becomes smaller than your next breath. If sorrow enters, give it a good seat. Ask it nothing, require nothing. Sorrow that is not questioned becomes a companion instead of a command. Its edges soften, its center warms by one kindness. You begin to notice that grief, when trusted, is a kind of honesty, and honesty is lighter than hiding. If joy enters, do not cling. Joy likes an open window. Let it move through, touching frames, blessing corners. It is not leaving you, it is refusing to be owned, which is the same thing as staying available. A strange memory shows up, the one you never resolved. You always thought resolution would set you free. Tonight, you discover that gentle irrelevance is also freedom. What has stopped needing to matter becomes air. Think of each memory as a lantern with adjustable flame. Some need turning down, some need the wick trimmed, a few belong to other rooms entirely. You don't have to be the keeper of all the lanterns. You only need to agree that light is meant to fit the night. Your posture learns this truth first. The shoulders recede from the ears without being asked. The back widens between the shoulder blades, not by effort but by permission. Your face loses the expression of remembering and finds the expression of being remembered. Now, try this. Choose one small image and let it become simple. The shoe by the door. The steam on a window. The sentence someone didn't finish. Hold it the way water holds a pebble, surrounding without pressure. You will feel the moment when the image stops asking you for a verdict and becomes a guest. When you exhale next, imagine opening a window behind the heart. Not wide, just enough for the past to air itself out. The room nods. Dust settles in graceful spirals you don't have to track. If forgiveness rises, let it be quiet. If it doesn't, let that be quiet too. The mind loves ceremonies, the body prefers changes of weather. Weather is happening now. That is enough. Halfway between breath and thought, a sentence forms. I can keep what is kind and set down what is sharp. You do not carve it in stone, you write it in fog and watch it agree with you while it fades. The door behind remains ajar, an emblem of easy exits. But the more your memories grow light, the less you need that exit. You are not trapped with them, they are being unburdened with you. When the room senses you understand, it offers a smaller task. Carry one memory like a feather, only until the next inhale. You discover the feather carries you instead. Hold here. Let the past remember itself without your supervision. Let your present be the floor that says yes to everything that sits and no to everything that shouts. The night approves. The air becomes clear. You are lighter by exactly the amount of story you laid down. The room begins to speak, not with sentences, but with arrangements. A cooler ribbon of air crosses your cheek, then stops exactly where your attention stops. Light thins near the ceiling, grows denser at your knees, and somehow that says, stay low. Stay easy. From the far corner, a hush gathers like a cat turning in a circle before it rests. That, too, is language. You answer by doing less. Your shoulders accept the idea immediately. Your breath accepts it next. Thought hesitates, then realizes it is being relieved of duty and sits, grateful for once, in the back row. The room tries a different grammar. A soft pressure appears between the shoulder blades, orientation, not command. Floorboards warm by one kindness along the outsides of your feet, belonging, not ownership. Somewhere, a thread in the wall releases the smallest click, permission, not instruction. You remember how it felt to be spoken to with hurry, with ought, with proof. This is the opposite of that. Meaning arrives here as timing and texture. Silence that becomes thicker when you are ready to stop speaking. Stillness that grows brighter when it is time to rest. Listen for the room's verbs. To welcome, to soften, to allow, to include. They conjugate through tiny changes. The breath slows, the jaw falls, the skin along the ribs grows spacious. Nouns are simple, floor, air, wall. Adjectives are almost nothing, enough, kind, unafraid. Your next inhale and the cable hum agree on a tempo. Your next exhale and the door's edge agree on a distance. The agreement is the message. You cannot fall out of this. If a thought tries to negotiate, how long will this last? What comes after? The room replies by lengthening the pause between heartbeats until the questions forget to remain questions. Uncertainty becomes a soft chair. You sit in it without sitting. From the left, a smell like old paper and warm wood. Memory is safe to touch. From the right, a slight coolness at the wrist. You are not required to hold anything tightly. From behind, the corridor keeps the posture of whenever, reminding you that arrival is not a closed door. You test the conversation with the smallest reply. A sigh that doesn't mean sadness, only release. A tilt of the head that means, I hear you. A heavier exhale that means, keep going. The room continues, pleased to use a language that does not need mouths. It says, let effort resign for the night. You feel the message as the skin of the throat becoming friendly. It says, let meaning be wide rather than sharp. You feel the message as the eyes growing glossy with rest. It says nothing about achievement, and your spine thanks it with a patient curve. Call and response forms without noise. You widen your back a centimeter, the light lowers its voice. You let the belly move without permission, the floor lifts a breath to meet it. You forget your name for half a second, the room remembers it for you and keeps it safe. There is, briefly, the old pull to narrate this, to save it, to make it portable. The room answers with a microgesture, the tiniest settling of dust in a shaft of not quite light. The dust does not keep a journal. Neither must you. If the eyes wish to close, the room dimmers 1 degree to make the wish obvious. If the eyes wish to stay half-lidded, the room paints the edges softer so that seeing requires no effort. Either way, the message stays the same. You are already inside the thing you were trying to reach. A sound occurs like a page turning itself. Another like a kettle deciding not to boil. These are the room's conjunctions, quiet bridges between states. You cross them without stepping. Notice how understanding here is physical first. The body knows what the mind would phrase too loudly. Understanding lands as warmth at the sternum, as space behind the heart, as a loosened ring where the skull meets the neck. When the room has said all it needs to say for now, it does the kindest thing language can do. It becomes transparent and lets you keep resting without listening. Meaning remains, but the need to receive it dissolves. Hold in that lightness a moment longer. Not guarding the hush, but letting the hush guard you. Until the next sentence of the night arrives as a change in the air. Questions arrive like birds, curious, tilting their heads, hopeful for crumbs. You do not shoo them. You do not feed them plans. You offer a windowsill of quiet and let them decide how long to stay. This room is not a courtroom. It is a clearing. Answers belong to places where clocks are loud. Here, what matters most is the small muscle that says yes to being here at all. Try it now. Not why did this happen? Not what should I do? Only the gentler sentence, this can exist without being solved. Feel what your body does with that. The shoulders lower by one kindness. The breath widens by one season. The mind, disarmed, discovers it is a better listener than a leader. Permission is not a door you force, it is the air that appears when forcing stops. It gathers in the hollows, behind the heart, under the collarbones, inside the palms. It does not rescue you from reality. It removes the weight that made reality feel uncarryable. Notice the old habit to interrogate the night. How? When? What if? Let each question sit on a soft chair and watch its edges round off. Questions are not enemies. They are weather systems. You don't defeat weather. You wait kindly, and it moves on with dignity. Bring to mind one knot you keep in your pocket. Don't name it. Just feel its shape. Offer it these 4 permissions. You may be here. You do not have to finish tonight. You may become simpler than you think. You may leave without a speech when you are ready. Something loosens, perhaps not the knot itself, but the hand that clenched around it. The difference is enough to sleep by. You look toward the door. It remains slightly open in the posture of whenever. The corridor does not demand a report. The room does not ask for a promise. Between them you learn a grammar where enough is a complete sentence. Try breathing as consent. Inhale, allowed. Exhale, released. Inhale, included. Exhale, unburdened. If a memory returns for the 10th time, let the 10th time be the one that needs no verdict. If an emotion rises without a label, let it be weather and let the ribs be coastline. Answers have edges, permission has warmth. Edges wake the mind, warmth invites the nervous system to put down its armor. You came here to sleep, not to argue yourself into peace. Listen to how the room speaks this language. The floor agrees to carry you with less detail. The air agrees to touch you without asking for attention. The light agrees to honor outlines and ignore flaws. You may think you need a map. The room offers a compass instead. Point it toward softer and you will always be headed the right way. A compass can guide you even with eyes closed. Sleep loves travelers who navigate by feel. If belief is hard, try posture first. Let the chin tip down a degree. Let the back of the neck grow long by forgetting to shorten. Let the mouth rest open just enough to stop editing the breath. Now give permission to 3 simple truths. You are already inside a safe moment. You don't have to earn what is already happening. Rest can begin before understanding arrives. Hold each truth for 1 breath cycle and then let it find its own place in the room. They settle like feathers. They do not demand frames. A thought protests, but what about tomorrow? The room answers by widening the space between this exhale and the next inhale. A pause that holds tomorrow gently out of reach until you are no longer reaching. This is not avoidance. It is right sizing. The night is for small instruments, pulse, warmth, breath, ease. Let daylight keep the bigger tools. Before you drift, practice the shortest prayer this room knows. May I allow. Say it without words. Let the collarbones float. Let the belly soften. Let the jaw agree. Answers can come later, like mail delivered in the morning. Permission is the bed. Lie down in it. You sense the corridor again, though you have not moved. It is the quiet trick of this place. The way back is not behind you, it is within you, widening. Let the breath mark the path. Inhale, and the edges of the room blur into corridor. Exhale, and the corridor settles back into room. Two names for the same gentleness. You test the truth with the smallest experiment. Without lifting a foot, imagine one step taken. The floor agrees by warming the outline of your heel. You are back on the path and still perfectly inside. Behind you, the door stays ajar in the posture of whenever. No need to close what was never a barrier. No need to open what is already agreed. Thought wonders if this counts as progress. Progress is a daytime word. Night prefers continuing. Continuing requires nothing from you but willingness. A long, kind inhalation. The corridor appears, same hush, same patient light along the baseboards. A long, kinder exhalation. The room returns, same width, same invitation to rest. You are not choosing, you are allowing both. This is how you return without leaving. You carry your attention like a lantern turned low. And everywhere you look learns to become the next quiet passage. Memories that earlier asked for chairs now prefer to walk the hall in soft shoes. Let them go. They find doorways of their own and bow to rooms that do not need your witness. The past, when trusted, manages itself. Try a second experiment. Imagine your name written on the air at shoulder height. Now imagine wind gentler than breath lifting each letter until the string loosens. And the letters become birds, then become sky. You remain, unlabeled and more accurate. The body likes this honesty. The back widens, the neck lengthens by forgetting to shorten. The skin along the ribs grows spacious. Even the tongue gives up editing the breath. You can rest in the room, you can rest in the corridor. The resting is identical. One is the shape of shelter. One is the shape of path. Shelter and path have always been friends, they simply meet more easily at night. The wire hum you heard earlier changes key to match your pulse. Dust performs a single quiet turn in a seam of not quite light and decides that is enough. Somewhere a hinge remembers a story and chooses not to tell it. Restraint, too, can be a gift. If a plan knocks, tomorrow, next week, the thing you might say. Offer it this corridor and watch it lose its urgency at the threshold. Plans are not enemies, they are weather. Weather rearranges itself when night opens a wider sky. You could leave now and you would still be here. You could stay now and you would still be moving. That is the arithmetic of this place, addition by softening, travel by easing. Let the breath be the vehicle. Inhale, the hall lengthens by permission. Exhale, the room deepens by trust. Inhale, the feet remember corridors they have never walked. Exhale, the shoulders return to a home that doesn't require walls. The door behind does what kindness always does, it keeps watch without watching. You feel its attention as a warmth between the shoulder blades. Forward is not a direction now, it is a temperature. At the next pause between breaths, notice how the mind searches for a narrative hook and finds none. Let it be hookless. Hookless stories are the easiest to sleep inside. You stand, without standing, at the gentle intersection of going and staying. Here, you can turn either way and arrive in the same ease. Here, you can close your eyes and be truer to the room than if they were open. Return without leaving, again and again, until the movement is so natural it becomes indistinguishable from rest. When that happens, you will feel the night step closer. not as darkness, but as a friend who knows when to speak softly and when not to speak at all. Hold this place for one long inhale and one longer exhale. Let the body keep the map, let the breath keep the key. Sleep doesn't knock, it lets itself in the way a trusted friend does. Quiet steps, familiar coat, the soft sound of keys set in a bowl. It knows this room. It knows your pace. It knows the door behind you is already in the posture of whenever. Let your eyelids grow pleasantly heavy, like curtains that have agreed to close a little earlier tonight. Let the breath keep its simple work, arrive and offer, arrive and offer. You don't have to enlarge it or slow it on purpose. The body understands the assignment. The outline of things blurs, first at the edges of the room, then at the edges of thought. What remains is shape without demand, floor is welcome, air is company, wall is boundary that protects without arguing. Imagine the mind setting a teacup down and finding that its hands no longer need to hold. Imagine a lantern turned lower by a single notch. The light is enough to be kind and not enough to be busy. That is the level we want. Heaviness redistributes itself the intelligent way, evenly, kindly, without pinching. The jaw hangs, then finds a resting place it didn't know it wanted. The tongue is wide and friendly. The back lengthens by forgetting to be tall. The hands become warm at the backs, cool at the palms, fingers long and unrequired. If a thought asks, "Am I asleep yet?" let the question step outside to look at the weather and forget to come back. If another thought volunteers a list, let the list curl like paper near a quiet candle and stop wanting to be a list. If emotion rises, give it the best chair. The fabric is so soft that urgency can't keep its shape. Offer the nervous system a few simple truths to hold while you drift. I am safe enough to rest. Nothing important will be lost by easing now. The story continues for me if I sleep. Let these truths sit where breath meets rib and rib becomes tide. They don't need guarding, they guard you. If you want a soft rhythm, count not numbers but landmarks. Windowsill. Shoulder blades. The place behind the heart. The weight of both heels. Then begin again, and smaller. The left eyelid. The right eyelid. The left hand. The right hand. Between each, a little pause, like a shoreline choosing a new curve. Sleep approves of humility. So be simple. Let inhale be allowed. Let exhale be released. Let the next inhale be included. Let the next exhale be enough. Somewhere in this sequence, the room will take your weight the way water takes a pebble, fully, without remark. You will feel the click of being held, no sound, only the absence of needing to hold yourself up. If you happen to drift and surface again, the corridor will still be here. You can return without leaving. One breath widens into hall, the next breath deepens into room. There is no wrong moment to rejoin. Ease is a circle without edges. Should the eyes close now, let them close as if sleep were kissing them hello rather than goodbye. Should they hover half-lidded, let the pictures grow so soft that looking becomes the same as resting. Sleep arrives like this. As a friend who tidies without commentary. As a tide that moves furniture a fraction closer to kindness. As the quiet confidence that nothing essential will ask for your attention until morning. If dreams want you, they will knock softly from the inside. If stillness wants you, it will sit beside you and purr like faraway wires. Either way, you are being carried. Allow the last neat thought to loosen its tie. Allow the last tidy sentence to stop at a comma and call the comma complete. Allow the body to be the bed's favorite weight. We will keep walking in the corridor you chose, gently, quietly. And if you're already gone to sleep, that is the perfect way to hear the rest. The room keeps holding you the way tide keeps shore, without needing proof, without asking you to stay. If you are already asleep, let the rest of this become whether you dream through. If you are hovering, let these last lines be the softest bridge. Breathe once as if setting a lantern down. Breathe again as if lowering the lantern's flame by a single notch. On the third breath, let the hand that lowers the flame forget it is a hand. The light knows what to do. The corridor has not gone anywhere. It has simply learned your rhythm. Every inhale is a step you don't have to take. Every exhale is a place to set your weight that is not a burden. Nothing more must open tonight. The door behind remains ajar in the posture of whenever. The door within remains warm in the posture of yes. If a shape of thought rises, give it a gentle task. Stand by the wall, keep watch, grow smaller by kindness. It will oblige, because this place teaches even thoughts to become furniture. Let the spine rest like a slow river, wide where it needs to be wide, deep where it needs to be deep. Let the jaw release its carefulness into gravity's patient hands. Let the cheeks soften until the eyes understand without having to see. Count not down, but inward. The circle of breath at the tip of the nose. The quiet room behind the sternum. The soft field across the lower ribs. The warm outline of both heels. Then smaller. Left eyelid, right eyelid. Left hand, right hand. Mouth, tongue, throat. The whole of you, gathered but unheld. Outside the story, night carries its ordinary duties. Distant wires purr, paint keeps secrets, dust practices landing. Inside the story, you are carried, no effort, no audience, only the companionship of ease. If you surface later and wonder whether to return, remember, you never left. One breath is corridor. One breath is room. Permission does the walking for you. We will leave the door precisely as you found it, awake, uninsistent, kind. It has learned your name the way trees learn wind, by listening for long enough that knowing becomes natural. Let the last sentence be unfinished on purpose. Let the last instruction be no instruction at all. Let the night decide which dreams to send and which silences to keep. For the next few breaths, imagine this. A hand you cannot see adjusts a blanket of light over your shoulders. The floor, satisfied, rises one softness to meet you. The air, relieved, stops trying to be air and becomes rest. As you drift, anything still sharp will dull itself on the edges of patience. Anything still loud will find the volume knob labeled enough. When morning comes, whenever morning chooses to be, you may step out through the same breathing door. It will not ask what you accomplished. It will ask only whether you remembered to be kind to the part of you that needed sleep. Until then, remain exactly as you are. Unfinished without worry, quiet without effort, held without holding. The lantern is low. The corridor is long in the good way. The bed knows your shape. You are already where you meant to arrive. Good night, and let the rest continue without you needing to notice it.